Hi! Today we're going to be talking about if you're hypersensitive and you're having problems with tough directions / tough directors. So apparently we're receiving a lot of questions about actors who are feeling that they're hypersensitive and who are being challenged by this type of tough direction. So I'm first going to debunk a myth, and I would first like to talk about what hypersensitive means for an actor and what tough means for a director. So if we start by a tough director or tough direction, it actually means that the director, in the responsibility that he has to do his job, is able to be clear, that he knows what he wants, and that he's able to express it and to communicate his needs in a very clear way too. So that in a way is good news, because his job as the director is to have a vision, to understand what's happening in the story, and to be able to convey what he needs from you in order to tell his story. So he's being clear. A director who wouldn't be directing is a director who doesn't have any clarity, who's unable to tell you what they want. And so you're left to yourself doing your own direction, but you're probably not understanding the full spectrum of the story and everything that's interweaving. And so that director is lacking. So I'm going to start by saying that tough direction is what you need. Now, let's look at hypersensitive. As an actor, your job is to be able to be fully alive in the needs and circumstances of your character. So I'm also going to say that if you're hypersensitive, it's great news, because it means you're feeling a lot. It means your instrument is reactive. It means that when there's stimulation from outside, there's a lot of feeling. An actor who wouldn't have that level of sensitivity would have a problem, because they wouldn't be able to feel for their character. So I'm also going to say here that your hypersensitive as an actor, or your hypersensitivity as an actor, is really wonderful news, because it's only when you're going to be highly or more sensitive than the norm that you're going to be able to offer all of that life force, all of those sensations, emotions, and feelings, and reactions, and energy to your character. So I'm going to say a hypersensitive actor, check, great, wonderful, that's what every director dreams of. And I'm going to say a tough director, or who has tough directions, great, check, that's what every actor would be wanting to look for so that they're being directed, is a wonderful combo. Now, where it might scratch or hurt or sting is if your hypersensitivity is becoming personal, meaning that you're coming in, you're proposing something, you're making a choice, and then the director is giving you something very clear that I think tough has the texture of a little bit of judgment. But let's say that the director is very clear with what he wants. If that affects you personally in your ego, that's a problem. And that problem or that responsibility is on you. It's not the director's job to take care of how things hit you personally, how they scare you, how they wound you, how they touch on your trauma. That's your job as an actor, to come with an instrument that is available, that is open, that is freely feeling everything it feels, and that doesn't get offended when there is a direction that comes, but more so an instrument that's so open and available that all this hypersensitivity can be steered and in the direction of the director's notes. So let me try to say it another way, just to make sure you're understanding. Yeah. So the distinction being, if you're hypersensitive And what's happening is that your ego gets triggered. You're resisting the director. You're making his direction or her direction mean that there's something wrong with what you're doing. It's your job to work on that. Your instrument and your job is not to come to set and bring your personality, your ego, your wounds, and your trauma in a way that it's unworkable. That's not what you're hired for. What you're hired for is to come to set or to stage and have that hypersensitivity or that wonderful, yummy openness of yours and vulnerability be available for the character. That means you've got to have done enough work on yourself in order to be available for others and not make things mean that there's something wrong with you. The work that we do with actors is really going through all of the things that you feel, feeling them, going through all of the resistance, so that you get to a point of opening where you understand there is no wrong, there is no right, there is just this. And therefore none of it can be triggered. When you're still being triggered by a director or another actor in your acting, it means that there's still some defense mechanism, some coping mechanism, some resistance that's like an open wound. And when someone approaches, you would back your hand out. So the work to be done is to really have done enough of the, we call it resetting work, to whatever open wounds you have, to have them heal, to let them heal, to let them scar, to let them alchemize into the new you, so that you can come being vulnerable, being hypersensitive, being hyper strong, being hyper opinionated, no matter where you're standing on that spectrum, and you're actually able to offer all of that to the character and the director to direct, rather than be just a raw open wound that needs everyone to walk your talk, to think like you think, to want what you want, and if not, you get offended. So that's really not, that's not an expectation that you can have, because a set or play is a big group of people, a big team of people that are collaborating together. The idea is not you make a choice on your character, you come to set, and everyone should agree with you. And if they don't, you get upset. That's not professional. So the work is really to be able to dive into those resistances, to dive into the conditioning that's made you triggered, that's shaped you into someone who is at the effect of what others think, who is really spiraling along that type of inner voice, like, oh, what do they think of me? Oh, if he said left when I was going right, that means he doesn't like me. Oh my God, what does that mean? Are they going to fire me? Does he not like me? Oh, I hate him. All of that is not hypersensitivity. That's not hypersensitivity that you can use for art. That's ego. That's ego being triggered, and that's coming in the way of your work and in the way of everyone's work. So the recommendation is really, as an actor, part of a professional project, no matter where you are on that spectrum, whether you're starting in the middle or at the very top of it. We see all kinds of paths come and do this work. It's really about undoing, right? It's really about undoing all the resistances, all the wiring, all the programming that has made you think that things should be a certain way, that you should be a certain way, that they should be a certain way, that things between you should happen a certain way, because there's a right way to do things and there's a good way to behave. All of that is rubbish conditioning. All of that is how you were educated. All of that is invented. It has nothing to do with how you feel in the moment and what you can bring to the picture, in this case to the role. So if you're interested to start to undo the programming, to undo the wiring that keeps you locked into that ego and keeps you triggered and at the mercy of what others think or want, and therefore keeps you really unfree and stuck and like caged, then you can type free 100 in the comments, and we'll be happy to send you some information, some free information on how you can start to do this work of freeing yourself up, so that if you're hypersensitive and if you're getting tough or very clear and direct direction, you're really able to lean into it, to dive into it, to allow all of that magnificent energy of yours and sensation of yours to be taken, to be surrendered into a story, to be taken in a certain direction. Because that's when you feel fulfilled, that's when you're in flow, that's when it feels incredible to act, that's when, you know, your character is incredibly alive, that's when the audience is impacted, that's when the story is being told. So all the ducks are in a row. If you're able to show up not in your ego, but in service to your character and not in service to your ego, then really things start to happen. That's when you start, you know, booking the type of jobs that you actually want. That's when you start going to an audition for role A and you get, you know, role B instead, which is much bigger and much juicier. So if you look at the testimonials here online or on our website, tobeornottoact.com, you'll see a lot of actors are talking about how incredible it is to feel free when you act, to not be stuck in your ego, and therefore when casting sees you, they want to book you. So you may come in for a certain role and you may not be the type, but they'll want to book you for another one because you're so yummy, so alive, so present, so in service to the character and not to your ego trying to book, trying to look good, trying to be right, that they can literally feel you. They can, you know, get an experience of you. They can feel your aliveness. And that's what, of course, everyone is looking for, whether it's the casting director, whether it's the director, whether it's the audience. And you want that aliveness, you know. That's really what everything is all about, is feeling the experience of being fully alive rather than the ego. So I hope that this makes sense to you. I hope this was helpful. Again, if you want to start diving into this work and you're interested in undoing the programming, the conditioning, and we sometimes call it the indoctrination that you've been through, in order to reset yourself, in order to feel instinctive and free when you're acting, so that no vulnerability of yours is ever jeopardized by tough direction or by anything else, then send us a comment. You can write free 100 and we'll send you some free trainings right away. All right. Thank you guys. Lovely to see you. Bye.